So, so I have two herbs, two of these herbs produced by the earth itself. I possess two of them as of now. One very common can you see it? Cannabis. Some say it's the forbidden bud, the forbidden flower. Not necessarily. For if it is forbidden, then so are other substances. Now, obviously, you can think of other things produced by the earth which are considered forbidden. The coca leaf. Perhaps so. Yet, it's not necessarily the leaf itself which is so infamous. For example, Coca-Cola. I'm sure you've heard before the old recipe. Coke. But company and their product, they still utilize the coca leaf in their recipe. Yet, the information of such a thing is obfuscated by the label, which lists the quote-unquote ingredients. But there's no need to worry about what's in it. You will consume what you will consume. And it will affect you how it affects you. So, if any of these things of the earth are forbidden, should it be cannabis, coca, tobacco? Perhaps so. But then, in the same regard, it would be lilies, dandelions, chrysanthemum, all forbidden things of the earth. You could go further. Fungus, mushrooms, psilocybin, amanita, any mushroom you can think of. Even those that we, as people, may utilize for whatever we need to. Some are rich in nutrients, which we utilize by ingesting them. as they're edible. Lion's mane, turkey tail, or Trametes versicolor. Ganoderma. But also, think of one mushroom named Amanita phalloides, or phalloids. People call this the death cap. You eat some of it, and the damage it does to your organs is almost always deadly. But that's with anything. Any kind of natural produce from this planet we live. Apples, fruits, vegetables. Now, they all have different effects. It is up to the person consuming them to decide how they think of those effects, to decide for themselves how those effects translate to them. Are they beneficial? Are they detrimental? That is up to each person to decide for themselves. Now, many times, people will agree on this categorization of the fruits and of the things of us, things of nature. For example, cannabis. I don't prefer it. I don't. It's not something that I believe that I need anymore. Yet at one time, I completely believed that I need it for my own mental benefit. And though perhaps there was a mental benefit, it's not one that will progressively be more beneficial. The first time I ingested THC in the form of cannabis, oh, I can assure you my life changed. My mind changed. And I soon learned that what actually happens when you ingest THC is your brain has a set limited amount of natural THC receptors. And these receptors are equal to the amount of THC that is naturally produced in your body when you're born. Now, if you introduce more THC to your body, more than your receptors are used to even existing, what do you think happens? It enters your bloodstream and it goes to your brain. What does your brain really do with it? It can't just automatically ingest it. It doesn't have the necessary receptors to do so. But this is the power of the human body and the human mind and the human brain. With all substances, this is just one example. Your brain is so powerful, so adaptive. What happens is, there's all this THC in your brain that it doesn't know what to do with it all. There aren't the necessary receptors to receive it to your brain cells. So what does the brain do? It adapts. It forces itself to create completely new receptors for the THC. It creates new microscopic pieces of flesh, which we already have a limited amount of in our brain that when we're born. These receptors are designed for THC. The fact that when there's an unnatural and excessive amount of THC, which we ingested ourselves either by smoking or eating it, our brain fights it. Our brain fights to accept it, actually. It fights its own restrictions, just like we can do in our lives, in our minds, in our souls. Think about it. If your brain is creating new receptors for a compound in its body that it's not used to at all, how do you think that translates into your life? Your thoughts are your life after all. Your thoughts are your actions. The quality of your thoughts determine your life. That's a quote from, I want to say, Socrates, but I'm not sure. There's a philosopher of his time who said such a thing. Yet it remains true, for it has always been true. I'm not in my most intelligent state. Not whatsoever. However, I've ingested more THC than I have in quite a long time. In making this video, it's teaching me as much as it is teaching you. I slur my words. I don't usually do that. I speak with my emotions and not would I know to be true? I don't usually do that either. But who am I? Who am I? I did it again. Who am I to say that doing such a thing will not benefit me in the future? Even if it is perhaps a negative experience. I'm going to smoke more. At least this much. But I have another herb to show you. This it was horizontal for a second. This is the blue water lily, or blue lotus. I've never seen one in person, but I want to now that I've become aware of this flower. And yes, it is a flower. It's mostly seen in ponds or small lakes because it emerges upon a lily pad. That's fascinating as well, how certain parts of nature can only be due to other parts of nature. And that goes for anything, that goes for humans, that goes for animals. But I look at plants, but also mushrooms again. I forgot the word. I think this is the word, but some mushrooms are Cryptophilus. Correct me if I'm wrong. But whatever this word is, it categorizes certain fungus or mushrooms that grow on manure. Manure being another word for feces. Shit. Now, I've heard the theory before that if we went outside and took a shit on some sod or on some certain grass or in a forest, that a certain type of mushroom would grow out of our shit. Is that true? I have no idea. Do I want to test it? That's another video. But we know of certain animals producing mushrooms from their manure. Most well known being perhaps cows, cattle. That's where psilocybin is grown. I've also heard psilocybin emerging from the manure of horses. That's probably true. But I've also heard completely different mushrooms coming from horse shit. Mushrooms that, if ingested, are deadly or poisonous or somehow harmful. Not psilocybe, or specifically Psilocybe cubensis, which is commonly named the magic mushroom, which I'm sure you've heard. But there are other Cropophilus mushrooms. I've seen them myself. I've been in areas where there are cows and they take shits. There is Psilocybe cubensis. That's not always what emerges from the shit. There's another mushroom called ink caps, specifically, I think, ticker ink caps. They emerge from shit. And they are not good. They don't have psychoactive effects like psilocybe, and they actually are harmful. And they are full of some compound, I don't know the name, but when it is released from the fungus, it looks like ink, black ink. That's why it's called an ink cap. This compound, when you ingest the ink, it's harmful to your body in some way, or to your brain. I have my own studying to do of specifically mycology, study of fungus. Now, there is psilocybe. To identify it, if you see a pile of cow shit and nearby it or on the cow shit, you see a kind of white yellow mushroom where the cap of it is yellow, and it's called a golden cap. So, if you see a golden capped mushroom, especially with a purple ring around its stem, that's psilocybe. So, if you go out to your cow pasture and you spot that mushroom, take it. Eat it. Or, if you prefer not to eat it, there are people in the world who will trade you the green paper for it. I made another video about the green paper. Go watch it. Anyway, there's one more mushroom I know of that specifically comes from cow shit. Now, there are other species of psilocybe, which are not Psilocybe cubensis, and they grow on different surfaces than cow shit. But anyway, what's interesting is I've spotted another species of mushroom that is born unto cow shit called the petticoat mottled-gill. Now, the petticoat mottled-gill, some people actually call them the brown caps. They have a much thinner stem and are usually smaller than the psilocybe. And of course, they have a brown cap that is more. Damn. There are some words for the. There's different categorizations for the shape of the mushroom's cap from each mushroom. So mushrooms that have a cap that look like this would be called this. Again, should have researched the vocabulary on the subject. And after this video is posted, I definitely will clarify those vocabulary terms in some way. But petticoat mottled-gill its cap is much more inverse and rounded than the psilocybe, where the cap, as it grows, it spreads out. Almost like an umbrella, if you can imagine that. But the petticoat mottle gill stays in the shape of an umbrella, a more closed umbrella. But the mottle gill also has... Now imagine the ends of the umbrella, the cap of the mushroom, the gills that are under it. There you see it. You pick a mushroom and you pick up a mottle gill, you look under it, you look under the cap, and it's got a bunch of lines. Those are gills, obviously. At the end of those gills, there's a sharp, small, sharp, white tip to the end. That tip apparently is where the mottle gill gets his name. They can also be called maze gill or razor gill, I've heard. But anyway, those are just the ones that I have discovered personally. I was on the topic of mushrooms because different mushrooms grow on different surfaces, like cow shit, like I just described. There are a lot of mushrooms that grow on wood, and specifically dead wood, like wood from a tree that has been detached from the tree and thus died. Now, with those mushrooms, which are found on dead wood, they're also likely inhabited by small insects. Isn't that fascinating as well? A tree loses its limb. The insects make it their home. Because they're able to fit in it at mass quantities, which they need to reproduce, which they do rapidly, which is why they're in mass quantities. But anyway, there's some mushrooms that only grow on dead wood. Mushrooms themselves, or any kind of fungus, it is a species, living species. It's alive. But things are alive, just like plants, just like trees, just like dirt, just like everything. We all have consciousness. Fungus, plants, blue lotus, cannabis, tobacco. It's all conscious. That is why it feels the need to survive. Anyway, fungus themselves, specifically, they are a species designed to decompose matter. Or, perhaps more accurately, transmute matter which is already decomposed into a new life form. Isn't that fucking amazing? It creates life from death. Just like us. Perhaps that is what reincarnation really is. A biological and miraculous way that when one species dies, another species emerges from it. I mean, if a human dies, eventually something will ingest it, whether it be a mammal which can fully just rip the body apart, all the way down to a maggot or an army of maggots that slowly eat at your body. These things are so fascinating to me. Nature is. To be in touch with nature is simply to recognize its nature, just like our human nature. We are no different from the species which are a part of it. We are no different. We are not above them or more important. We are simply far more complex, and easily we are the most complex species on this planet. Easily. Our brains are uncomparable to any other species. People theorize the only species that comes close is fungus. Now, perhaps it doesn't have such complexity as maybe some other animals that are almost comparable in terms of their minds to us. But now, I've just thought, scratch that. We really are not above any of the animals. We are not even more complex. We aren't. The thing is, what us humans do, we reject the true nature of the earth. Think about it. Animals, do they do that? Perhaps they do. Birds, they gather chips of wood and sticks and twigs, and they create a nest. Now you might think, yeah, that's natural. But what humans do aren't. We have machines that construct giant structures made from who the fuck knows what. Actually, a lot of people know what. We construct them from mud and stones and anything you could think of. There are countless compounds and there are countless materials, that come from the earth that we manipulate as humans so much that they become an instant form of physical structures for us. And of course, we use these machines which mass produce these structures. Now, the question is that nature? Either way, even if doing such things is horrible for the earth, which it is, either way, our human selves, our bodies, and our minds are still always a part of nature. Even if we use our minds to create our own realm, our own way of construction. We are simply, perhaps, more advanced than the animals of the earth who they sleep and they find shelter in caves, or they create houses, they create these wood structures and trees, or whatever they do. Which animals do. Absolutely. But you see, the question is, are we more advanced? Or are we simply more evil? But evil is such a broad term. There's competition in nature, constantly. Yet, as humans, we often make ourselves believe that since we are humans in this modern society, that the competition is no longer a part of us. And to say rather uncomfortably, that will never be the case, no matter how much we say it is. Think about it. Who's at the top of the ladder? Is it one person? No. It's people fighting constantly. The government and all forms of control over our modern dystopia. It's all humans, just like you, just like me. But hey, listen, I'm saying those things not to make you worry. You don't have to worry. There's also love. And that's not to say that we are constantly in a state of awareness of love. Yet we can be. We can. But what is love? It's not, and I will say this again and again, it's not a feeling. Love is not the things you feel or the things that any creature feels. There's love in everything. Everybody, every creature is a lover, just like we are. Now, are they perfect? Nobody's perfect. None of us humans are perfect. None of the fish are perfect. None of the bears, none of the dogs, none of the mushrooms, none of the plants, none of the birds are perfect. None of it. The only thing that we could ever even fathom to be perfect in, by the way, our idea, simply the idea that we've created as humans of perfection is flawed in of itself. There is no perfection. There's only totality. Yet the only word we have is perfection. The only concept we have is the concept of perfection. But it's so much more than that. It's so much more than anything we can even comprehend. The only word that I think is accurate to describe it is love. For this love is in everything. For example, fish. Fish don't have feelings. They don't. They don't feel anything. Maybe they feel things physically. Maybe they have a nervous system similar to ours. Maybe it hurts when they're getting hurt. But that is how they're biologically born and designed in order to help themselves and make themselves survive on their own. Pain receptors, if you will. Anyway, fish, for example, they don't have the same kind of chemical feelings that humans might have. If you kill a fish, it's going to hurt the fish, and so the fish will resist you killing it. But not because it cares. A fish doesn't care whether it lives or dies. Not because it's not a conscious creature worthy of love and giving of love. It's just that as humans, we have biological emotions that make us fear death. Fish don't have that. And so, even though physically they are designed to avoid their own death, also, they are detached. Keyword, detached from the difference of life and death. Now, a fish, though, still has and receives love. Fish help each other survive. Fish have schools where they swim around, and I forget what are schools for. They have a certain purpose. Schools of fish. They create these schools. It's some kind of survival mechanism. Either that or it's them something with deterring bacteria from their bodies or deterring predators. I'm not sure. Again, once this video is released, I'll definitely clarify what I'm trying to refer to scientifically. Now, our idea, our own personal, subjective idea of love as humans, in our own existence as the species, humans, it's only unable to understand other humans which have this subjective form of love. The same way that we are almost only able to communicate with humans. Now we can communicate with animals in different ways, but what I'm saying is humans can all, if they want to, adapt to one form of communication. However, there are still infinite forms. Body language, feelings, and yes, feelings are, it's so complex, and the ideas that I'm proposing are so profound that, especially in this state that I'm in, I cannot possibly communicate them in their totality. I can't. Not right now. But I could. I can communicate them in a way where it reaches my highest possible limit of understanding as a human. What is that limit? There is none. The limit only grows with time and with learning. Time spent learning. And not just factual knowledge, not just the programming and knowledge that we're fed as a society, which I say it's programming, like TV, the internet, information on the internet, Wikipedia. But Wikipedia is a perfect example of what I'm saying. It's programming. Wikipedia, the internet, TikTok, TV, Netflix, streaming services, anything like that. Apps, advertisements. There's so many things to consider, but it's all programming. Now, you might think I'm some conspiracist and I'm saying, oh, it's all programming and there's people at the top, like I mentioned earlier, people at the top, people who are elite, and they control all the programming. No. Like I said, everyone is a human, just like you, just like me. This video is programming. You're being programmed. And if you click off this video and click on another one, you're also being programmed by another human. Now, that's why on these websites like YouTube or streaming services like Netflix, we have a choice of what programming we would prefer, because it's something that perhaps entertains us or teaches us or makes us tap into our own feelings and certain feelings. I say it's all programming, which it is, but it's not to say that there's a conspiracy at all. Now, sometimes there are conspiracies. I'm not denying that. There are pyramid schemes, there are agendas, but not everyone has an agenda. And there's not one agenda which controls all the media, all the programming. It is decided upon by ourselves, by people like you and me, ourselves. This is my programming. You can make yours too, with your thoughts and your ideas, or whatever you choose to portray using a video camera or a software which creates some kind of visual content. But the programming is all the ideas and all the concepts and all the portrayals and creations of different people. That's why it's all different. Now, should you follow any of this programming like it's more important than your own thoughts and ideals? I wouldn't recommend that. You see people who are they watch the news every day and they're so focused on it. Did you hear what happened in Israel and Palestine? Did you hear what this man who at birth was named Donald J. Trump? Did you hear the noises that he made with his mouth to communicate certain ideas using this social communication form called words, which has been around for centuries? Did you hear the words that he chose to portray on a microphone in front of millions of people? Did you process the ideas which he was communicating through such words? And that's where there's illusion. No one can read other people's minds. They can only listen to the noises they make, and thus the words that they form. These words are a way to somehow communicate the ideas that we have, but they are never 100% accurate. Because not only are there a limited amount of words and concepts that have been manifested or materialized, not only that, but also not all of our ideas are accurate. Our ideas are responses to things, responses to our own ideas, responses to our experiences, responses to other words that people have said. Those are what ideas are. They are responses to yourself based on things that have happened to you or things you have heard, things you have absorbed into your thoughts. You can take it or leave it. That's with anything. You can take ideas or you can leave them. It is up to you. And none of them are right. But also, none of them are wrong. Now, if you have bad thoughts, if you have thoughts that discourage you, that's your fault. Your thoughts are your brain's responses. And you can control your brain. That's the only reason why you can control your life. Species like fish, again, this example of fish, they can't do that. They can't control their life because they don't have the same brain. They have consciousness, but their only instincts, their only feelings are those in response to physical interaction, whether that interaction be painful to them or harmful to their bodies, which obviously coincide. Humans have so many more feelings than that. And so our thoughts are so much more intricate, and there's so many more things involved. But love, even we have it. It's not always perfect. People make mistakes. And mistakes, like I said, it's because our thoughts aren't always accurate. Our feelings aren't always accurate. Just like in nature, like all other creatures, the physical feelings aren't always accurate. The physical nervous response that we have to physical interaction is not always accurate to the intricate intention of such physical interaction which we experienced. For example, have you ever tried to hug a dog? Have you ever tried to let's say you're in bed and you want your dog to lay next to you for warmth. Have you ever tried to pick up a dog and cuddle with it because you wanted to? Now, all dogs are different, just like all humans are different, just like all species are different, just like all members of all species are different. Just like we are, just like all dogs are, just like all cats, just like all members of all species. Anyway, some dogs, if you try to do that, they emit an attack response. They think they're being threatened physically, when that wasn't the intention at all. Some dogs will growl at you and bite you because they're scared. Because they aren't accurate. They don't have the completely accurate thoughts. Just like us. The same way that some dogs, I know one dog that does this. Some dogs, they will, and I'm saying it's both ways. It's actually it's a multitude of ways because there's a multitude of species on Earth. We all are inaccurate in our thoughts. Here's another example with humans and dogs specifically. I know one dog, and I'm sure other dogs do this. They play with humans. Every dog likes to play, right? For the most part. Some dogs, they like to nibble and kind of bite your hand or your foot or your ankle, but they're playing around. They're not intending to fight you or harm you. Now, our physical nervous system, in response to such a thing, our brain says to us, hey, this hurts. I'm trying to survive, and this species is trying to harm me, when that's not always accurate. It's not. And so, some people, they smack the dog away because they think, hey, why are you nibbling on my hand? Or you must be threatening me, when it's not always the case. And if you can tell, I'm guilty of that specific thing, because I'm a human too. And my thoughts are inaccurate just like yours. Now, if those physical feelings that we have, those physical responses based on our thoughts, which are inaccurate, just think about all the other feelings that we have as humans and how inaccurate they could possibly be. That's why there's so much confusion. Here's the thing, and if you don't remember anything I've said in this video, remember this. You might not be aware of it, but everyone loves you. Every other human, every other animal, every other species on this earth, other humans, everything. They all love you, just like I love you. And you love all of them too. You love me. You do. Now, I might confuse you, because the word love, it's just a word. Anyone can say the word love, and it means totally different things to every other person. That's just another example how inaccurate communication is, and inaccurate our thoughts are, because some people think, oh, love, that's a romance. No, that's the thought that you have that's not accurate to the truth. But what really is the truth? It's subjective. When I say love, I mean this natural thing that everything has. This natural kind of instinct, when it's so much more than an instinct. It's a desire, but it's so much more than a desire. It can only be described in my thoughts as love. And that's the thing I'm trying to communicate. That's the thing I try to communicate with everyone in my own way. The love that I have for people. And the love that everyone has for people, they communicate it in their own way that they believe is the best. That's simply what I'm doing. But if I didn't love everything and everyone and every species and every human, then I wouldn't even be trying to communicate these thoughts. Because the thoughts that we have, some people say, oh, that person is selfish. They think selfishly. The thoughts that people have are inherently, and no, the thoughts that people have, that humans have, that animals have, that every species has is inherently good. Inherently good. Everything, everyone, every human, everything is good. And they want to be gooder. They want to be more good. Constantly. Everyone. People say, and I'm sure you know the song named this, but people say everyone wants to rule the world. No. Everyone wants to save the world. Everyone wants to be the one who saves the world. Some people just it's so complex with each person. It's so that they're so drastically different. Some people, they believe that so everyone wants to save the world. Here's the thing though. There are people who believe that the world can't be saved. There are other people who believe the world doesn't deserve to be saved. And so their idea of saving the world is saving their world. And that's where the desire to rule the world comes from. That negative belief. That belief that's based on a lack of hope or understanding, which is completely understandable. It's no one can blame a person like that, just like you can't blame me, I can't blame you. No one can blame each other. We're all wrong. All of us are inaccurate because all of us are true. All of us are right too. We're not just wrong, we're all right, but we're all subjectively right. Objectivity is almost non-existent, but it exists. It's just something that we cannot, as species, humans, any animal, any species, but especially humans, that objectivity is this thing that we just cannot fully grasp because we are inherently subjective. And in our subjectivity, we completely believe that we completely understand objectivity. But that is subjectivity. It's like yin and yang. It's two sides of the same fucking coin. If I say that I am objectively right and somehow I do good things in the world, I end homelessness, I end hunger, I end this, I end this. And then I say, I am objectively right, I am objectively good and right. That's still not true. It doesn't matter how many good things you do, you're not right. Now, are those good things? Of course. And those things should make you happy because they do. They make you happy. They are good things. But that doesn't mean you're right. You're still in your own subjective truth, just like everyone and everything. But love is the union of our subjectivities, of our personalities, we call it. Personal, subjective, those two very similar definitions. Love is everything. It's indescribable. The only word I have is love, but that's nowhere near accurate to the thing, the part of existence that I'm trying to describe. It's so much more than this thing we call love, and it's so much better. It's so much more eternal, but it's also love. And love, it's not the feelings that we have for each other. Because that's just attraction. It's just emotional and physical attraction. Love is beyond that. Love is more powerful than that. Love doesn't have feelings. I've heard people say this before, and it's accurate. Not 100% accurate. But it's accurate to what I'm describing. If you love someone, if two people love each other, they will sacrifice their feelings for each other. If two people, put it this way, if two people truly love each other, then even if they don't have physical attraction or even emotional attraction, then they will still be together and try their hardest, do the best they can do to make each other happy, because that's what love is. Now, of course, if two people truly love each other like that, then the physical attraction and the emotional attraction will come after the fact that they love each other no matter what, even if they don't have those feelings for each other. That's what love really is. It's almost like discipline, but it's not. It's so much more than discipline. It's almost the highest discipline. It's like, and if a relationship is one-sided, then one person will suffer out of love for the other person. And if the other person doesn't have that physical or emotional attraction, no. Even if they do, then it doesn't mean they love them back. Even if two people are attracted to each other, it doesn't mean there's truly love, true love. If one person sacrifices their own feelings and suffers for the other person, that's love. If the other person doesn't do the same, that's not love. That's what a one-sided relationship really is. But also, that's just one facet of it. Some people are just sometimes there are two people that neither of them love each other, but one person is physically attracted and the other isn't, or one person's emotionally attracted, the other isn't. Some people, both people are attracted to each other physically, emotionally, but even then they don't love each other. They don't truly love each other. They don't. But there's also love for yourself, love for your life. And if you truly love yourself, and if you want something, and you love yourself more than anything, then you will get that thing, no matter what the fucking cost. because it's about you. If you love yourself that much, if you truly, truly, truly love yourself, you will sacrifice the things that you have or the things that you want for what you need. And what you want is coexisting with what you need. For example, some people, they abandon their families because they are happier that way. Some people, they betray people. They use people to get to the top because they're happier that way, because they love themselves. That's why people might call them selfish, because they love themselves more than anything. There are other people who love other people more than themselves. And depending on which people those are, the person can suffer because they love people that don't benefit them and don't make them fulfilled. But they still love them. That's what love is. That's why love is like detachment. It's detachment. You can detach from your own feelings, from your own satisfaction, spiritually, mentally, physically, as a human, because you love something or you love someone. There are people who hold you. That's why people say, "Oh, these people are holding you back, dude." People love. The reason people can hold some other people back is because people love them so much that they sacrifice their own well-being and their own happiness for that person. Now, is that a good thing? Yes, because it's love. But is that a bad thing? Yes, it can be. Some people love people that hurt them constantly. Emotionally, physically, literally physically. Some people love people that hurt their bodies. And that's enough. That's more proof that love is more than a feeling, because that physical feeling, right? The nervous system, the pain that a human feels physically. Some people love some other people so much that they will take that physical pain for the person. That's love. Even if it is horrible, it's love. There's love in everything. Now, is that to say that I recommend being in a relationship like that? Absolutely not. That's why so many people will tell you, because they've realized it themselves. They'll tell you to love yourself because they want you to avoid a situation like that. That's also love. They're telling people that because they're telling people to love themselves because they love those people and they want to see those people happy. And they think, if this person loves this other person so much that it's hurting them, and I want that person to be happy, then I'm going to tell them, hey, don't love this other person that's hurting you. Love yourself so you can be happy instead of them. That is important. If you love yourself, that is important. If you don't love yourself, I'm not judging you. But I love myself. If you don't, I still love you. You're beautiful. Because that love is beautiful. Even if I've known people, I know people who do that. They suffer for their love when they don't even have to. And it's horrible, but it's so beautiful. It's not me though. I've learned I prefer to love myself than to be in a horrible place. Actually, that's made me think of a situation that I'm currently in. There's someone that I love. And I feel now, and I felt actually, that they are not for me, which perhaps not. I'll have to find out. But either way, I will love myself more. And if I'm hurt enough, if I'm to a point where I'm if I'm to a certain point of badness, of suffering, where and unnecessary suffering, if I'm to a certain point where I'm suffering so much unnecessarily that, yeah, that I'm suffering unnecessarily so much, I will give it up. I will detach from it. Just like I detached from my own happiness to love this person. But if it gets to the point where I am at my own boundary, which I set myself, and each person sets their own boundary themselves, you can always decide and choose what your boundary is, and it can always change because you can always decide it. You can always change it. But anyway, if it gets to that boundary, I'm going to detach from it for myself. I'm going to detach from it in order to love myself. And that is what every single deity in existence does, not even on Earth. Yes, on Earth, all things on Earth. Love is detachment from different things. And the more that you love yourself and detach from anything else, I believe the higher you ascend into totality and abundance. Now, if that's not what you want, then okay, that's your choice. That's up to you. You're not judged. You're not. You are not judged. You aren't. But there's so much more suffering below in the realm where you love something so much or someone that it causes you to unnecessarily suffer and puts you in a horrible place. Some people call it hell. But when you love yourself and detach from all these things that could be a part of you, if you detach from it all, you just love yourself. You benefit as much as possible. And you detach from all these things you don't need, which is also subjective. You ascend in certain ways. If you love everything, then perhaps you will detach from everything, even yourself. But it's up to you what you love. In the material world, in Earth, right now, and I believe for a long time, I love myself. Because I need to benefit, just like you do. I want to benefit, just like you do. But I also want to save the world, just like you do. Even if you don't know it. Because you love everything. So do I. But we all need to love ourselves. Because we are everything. The Blue Lotus. This thing, love. Some people believe that it is called heaven, and so they call it heaven. And that's when people say heaven, that's why some other people say there's heaven on earth. If heaven is love, then heaven is everywhere. Love is everywhere. But these are just words. Again, they're not completely accurate. Just like I'm not. Just like you're not. Just like anyone you watch, anyone you listen to, anyone you see, anyone you experience is not completely accurate. It's not completely true. It's subjective. And it always will be. That's why everyone is so beautiful. And in relationships, we love each other's subjectivity. Not because we understand it, because we don't. Because we are all different. We are all having this subjective truth to ourselves. And it's different for every creature. And we won't understand every creature. And that's why we won't understand every creature. And every creature won't understand us. But if we detach from that desire to maybe understand, then we will love those creatures, despite our lack of understanding. That's what I do in my relationships. Most people, they don't detach from such a thing. They aren't detached from that want to understand. And maybe that's why they're not as happy as I am. water lily, lotus. Oh yeah. The cannabis. There it is, mixed together. Set your intention with everything. Even smoking. But it's not about the smoking, it's about the intention. The smoking part, that's still just smoking. So, enjoy. It's like a gunshot. Stamp lighter. I'll finish it. Spread my message. Love me. I love you. Benefit me and spread my message. And then speak your own message. Because you're loved.